This is a kibbutz in Israel. Kibbutzim, the Hebrew word for gathering, have been around for over 100 years, with the first one founded in 1910. They've housed generations of kibbutzniks and welcomed travellers as volunteers from all over the world. Some notable volunteers include Vermont Senator and recent US presidential candidate Bernie Sanders and comedian Sacha Baron Cohen. This is the first kibbutz in Israel, Degania. It was founded in 1910 just by the Sea of Galilee, which is right there. The original concept of the kibbutz was to form a utopian community founded on socialist principles that wealth should be owned and controlled by the community. A kibbutz provided its members free housing and basic living essentials, ranging from healthcare, education, childcare, food and utilities, in return for labour within the kibbutz. The goal was to make it a self-sufficient commune. In addition to basic living, members received a small personal budget. The personal budget was similar to a monthly salary, but amounts were equal unless a member had children, in which case they received a little more. Since the establishment of Degania, Israel saw over 250 kibbutzim sprout throughout the country. They contributed enormously to Israel's economic output and played an instrumental role in building the country as it is today. I'm visiting a kibbutz about 15 minutes away from the Sea of Galilee and Degania. This is kibbutz Neve Ur in Israel. Neve Ur was founded in 1948 by immigrants from Iraq, who later went on to abandon it because of its harsh environment. Temperatures in summer could reach over 45 degrees Celsius or 113 Fahrenheit. Pioneers and often rotating volunteers went on to replace the original founders and establish the kibbutz as it is today. These are some early examples of the houses provided to kibbutz members. They were modest, but were mainly a place to rest. Originally, children were housed in childcare together, so houses didn't need several rooms. In addition to housing, kibbutzim like Neve Ur also provided their members places of leisure. This could vary from one kibbutz to another, but typically a kibbutz provided its members a tennis court, swimming pool, or communal gardens, just to name a few. Members would also gather in the kibbutz library or communal dining hall. This is the kibbutz community dining hall. Members of the kibbutz would meet here for breakfast, lunch and dinner. In addition to that, they'd meet every Saturday night here to discuss matters of the community. This could be anything from renovating the pool and allocating funds towards it, to discussing old and new policies and whether to implement them and see if existing ones need changing. There were kibbutz members who worked full-time preparing meals here for the community. Their jobs were often rotated between members. A cook today might be a pool cleaner tomorrow. Kibbutzim also provided a canteen for its members. The canteen would provide kibbutzniks with everything from alcohol to fresh produce. Today, like many kibbutzim, Neve Ur's canteen is privately owned and offers a range you'd normally find at most supermarkets benefiting from globalization.
Here I took the place 12 years ago. It was completely different than now. Everything was one community. We shared everything, no income. Everybody used to work in public places like a dining room, like guarding in the night, like milking the cows. It was like a comuna.
The diversity of work ensured the kibbutz an income derived from several different sources. One of the major sources of income for a kibbutz is agriculture. Fields such as these would grow anything from tomatoes to parsley. To this day, agriculture continues to provide another source of income for kibbutzim: dairy. Food is still produced for livestock to produce milk, cheese, and even fertilizer. Today, dairy still remains highly profitable for Kibbutzim.
In addition to agriculture, most kibbutzim provided a factory, such as this one, to produce goods which would be used locally or exported.
Kibbutzim have also played a role in transitioning the country's energy to foster renewable alternatives. Israel's Afcon holding secured millions to build wind farms on Kibbutz Tiganya and Kibbutz Ma'ale HaGilboa.
Behind me is a wind farm owned by Kibbutz Tiganya. It's renewable energy that converts kinetic energy into electricity.
These wind farms also foster memories of renewable energies of the past. In 1919, when Russian-born engineer Pinchas Rutenberg submitted plans for hydroelectric power stations, he was granted concession to build and began working on a plant using the Sea of Galilee and Jordan River in 1927. In 1948, when the Arab Legion invaded nearby Kibbutz Gesher and the local police fort, the hydroelectricity plant was destroyed. Such incidents saw kibbutzim become staunch defenders of their borders from then hostile neighbours. This is Kibbutz Neve Ur in 1959, before peace was brokered between Jordan and Israel.
This tank and guardhouse face out at Jordan, but have been abandoned ever since the peace treaty between Israel and Jordan in 1994.
Though Jordanian army posts like this still stand in close proximity, the two countries still prosper from peace. So if the pioneers and volunteers weren't deterred by the harsh environment and war, what caused the majority to move away from the original social model of the kibbutz? In the 1980s, due to high inflation, many were faced with crippling debt and forced to privatise. In addition, the Labour Party, a key advocate of the kibbutz, lost the election and consequently subsidies dried up. There was also a loss of ideology. New generations wanted more for themselves and moved from kibbutzim to cities.
Many people, especially young, they said, no, we don't want. We have our parallel friends in the city, and when they are relatively young, they have a car, they have a big house, they have everything. We don't have nothing. So if you don't do the change, we go. People started to live here because we didn't do this change.
With the shift of property ownership from owned in common to privately owned, parents were able to renovate to accommodate their families. This meant children began to reside with their parents rather than with other children as was previously done. Today, very few kibbutzim still function as communes founded on socialist ideals. Some, like this one, are developing properties based on a future that forecasts growth. Growth from those seeking life outside cities, which they believe are crowded and expensive. Growth which places community at its heart.